The Phil Spector's Murder, Alhambra, California, 2003. The night of the 3rd of February, 2003, was cloaked in an eerie stillness over Alhambra, California, a quiet suburb of Los Angeles where the ordinary hum of life rarely broke into chaos. But in the shadow of the Pyrenees Castle, a sprawling, turreted mansion perched on a hill like a relic of some forgotten Gothic tale, something unspeakable was about to unfold. The air was heavy, the kind of oppressive quiet that makes your skin prickle, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside that castle, a tragedy was brewing, a collision of fame, obsession, and violence that would leave a woman dead and a legend's legacy in ruins. Phil Spector, the genius behind the Wall of Sound, a music producer whose name was etched into the history of rock and roll, was no stranger to darkness. By 2003, the man who had crafted hits for the Beatles, the Ronettes, and Tina Turner was a recluse, his brilliance overshadowed by a reputation for erratic behavior and a dangerous obsession with firearms. His mansion, a 10,590 square foot fortress of marble and mystery, was both a sanctuary and a prison, a place where Spector's demons roamed free. Neighbors whispered of strange noises, of lights flickering at odd hours, of a man who seemed to rule his domain like a feudal lord, isolated yet omnipotent. To step into the Pyrenees Castle was to enter a world where reality warped, where the line between genius and madness blurred. That night, Spector was restless, his mind clouded by alcohol and whatever else fueled his late-night prowls. He'd been out, as he often was, seeking company in the neon glow of Hollywood's nightlife. His chauffeur, Adriano de Souza, a Brazilian immigrant who moonlighted as Spector's backup driver, waited patiently outside the House of Blues on the Sunset Strip. De Souza was used to Spector's whims-long nights, sudden detours, and the occasional glimpse of the producer's volatile temper, but nothing could have prepared him for what was to come. Inside the club, Lana Clarkson, a 40-year-old actress with a radiant smile and a career that had never quite reached the heights she'd dreamed of, was working as a hostess. Tall, blonde, and striking, Lana had graced the screens in B-movies like Barbarian Queen and bit parts in classics like Scarface and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. But by 2003, the roles had dried up, and she was scraping by, her days filled with auditions and her nights spent at the House of Blues, serving VIPs with a charm that belied her struggles. Lana was a fighter, a woman who bought new shoes that very day, a small act of defiance against the weight of a fading career. She wasn't suicidal, as some would later claim. She was alive, vibrant, and unaware that fate was about to pull her into a nightmare. Spector, dressed in a white dinner jacket like some ghostly figure from a bygone era, entered the club with a swagger that demanded attention. His presence was magnetic, his reputation a mix of awe and fear. Lana, initially unaware of his fame, reportedly denied him access to the VIP area, a bold move that caught his eye. Management quickly intervened, instructing her to treat Spector with care, as if he were royalty. And so, a conversation began. Spector, charming when he wanted to be, invited Lana to join him for a drink after her shift. She hesitated but agreed, perhaps sensing an opportunity, perhaps simply caught in the orbit of a man who radiated power. They left together in Spector's Mercedes S 430, De Souza at the wheel, the city lights blurring past as they headed toward Alhambra. The drive to the Pyrenees Castle was quiet, the kind of silence that feels like a prelude to something awful. Lana and Spector watched Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye in the back of the limo, a film noir title that would later seem chillingly prophetic. De Souza, focused on the road, sensed nothing amiss, but the weight of the night pressed against him. When they arrived at the mansion, Spector led Lana inside, the heavy doors closing behind them with a thud that echoed like a gavel. De Souza parked near the back entrance, settling in for what he assumed would be a long wait. The castle loomed above, its windows dark, its secrets locked within. Inside, the foyer was a cavernous space of marble and shadow, lit by dim chandeliers that cast flickering patterns on the walls. A fake Louis XIV chair sat near the center, an odd throne in a room that felt more like a mausoleum than a home. Spector, now deep in his cups, was unpredictable. His mood could shift from jovial to menacing in an instant. Lana, perhaps sensing the shift, may have tried to leave. Witnesses from Spector's past would later testify to his habit of locking women in, removing deadbolt mechanisms to trap them in his domain. Had Lana realized she was caught in a spider's web? Did she try to laugh off his advances, to keep the night light, only to see his eyes darken? What happened next is a moment frozen in horror. At around 5 a.m., a single gunshot shattered the silence. D'Souza, startled from his doze, froze as the sound reverberated through the night. Moments later, the back door of the mansion swung open, and there stood Phil Spector, his white dinner jacket stained with blood, a Colt Cobra .38 caliber revolver in his trembling hand. His voice, usually commanding, was a rasp of panic. "I think I killed somebody," he said, the words hanging in the air like a confession from a nightmare. D'Souza's heart pounded as he processed the scene. Spector, the gun, the blood. He fumbled for his phone, his hand shaking as he dialed 911, his voice barely steady as he told the dispatcher, "I think my boss killed somebody." Inside the foyer, Lana Clarkson's body was slumped in the Louis XIV chair, her once vibrant presence extinguished. A single gunshot wound to her mouth had ended her life instantly. The bullet lodged at a downward angle, a detail that would later dismantle Spector's claims. Her teeth were scattered across the carpet, a gruesome testament to the violence of the act. Blood spattered the scene, some of it on Spector's jacket, his hand, his gun. A cloth diaper, inexplicably found in the bathroom, bore traces of Lana's blood, as if someone had tried to wipe away the evidence. The gun lay near her feet, a stage detail that reeked of desperation. Police swarmed the Pyrenees castle, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as helicopters buzzed overhead, drawn by the scent of a Hollywood scandal. Spector was arrested, his demeanor shifting from panic to defiance. He claimed Lana had kissed the gun, an accidental suicide by a woman he barely knew. But the evidence told a different story. The blood on his jacket, the angle of the bullet, the testimony of D'Souza pointed to a man who had pulled the trigger. And then there were the ghosts of Spector's past. Women who had faced his wrath, who had felt the cold press of a gun against their skin when they dared to defy him. Their voices, long silenced, were about to rise. As dawn broke over Alhambra, the Pyrenees castle stood silent, its walls holding the secrets of a night that would haunt Hollywood for years. Lana Clarkson, a woman who had fought for her place in the spotlight, was gone, her life snuffed out in a moment of senseless violence. Phil Spector, the genius who had once shaped the sound of a generation, was now a suspect in a murder that would unravel his carefully crafted myth. The stage was set for a trial that would grip the nation, a drama of fame, betrayal, and justice that was only just beginning. The sun rose over Los Angeles on the 3rd of February, 2003, but its golden rays did little to warm the chill that had settled over the Pyrenees castle in Alhambra. The Gothic mansion, once a symbol of Phil Spector's untouchable genius, was now a crime scene, cordoned off by yellow tape as police combed through its marble halls. Lana Clarkson's lifeless body had been carried away, her dreams of a Hollywood comeback snuffed out in a single, brutal moment. Spector, the legendary producer whose wall of sound had defined an era, sat in custody, his white dinner jacket still flecked with blood, his story unraveling faster than a cheap B-movie script. But this was no movie, this was a real-life drama, and the City of Angels was about to become a circus. Word of the murder spread like wildfire through Hollywood's glittering underbelly. Paparazzi swarmed, their cameras flashing like vultures circling a kill. Gossip columns buzzed with speculation, each headline more lurid than the last. Rock god or murderer? Lana's last night. What really happened? The public was ravenous, their curiosity stoked by the collision of fame and infamy. Spector, with his wild hair and cryptic demeanor, was the perfect villain, a reclusive genius whose dark side had finally spilled into the spotlight. Lana, the radiant actress who'd fought for her slice of stardom, was the tragic heroine, her beauty immortalized in death. The stage was set for a spectacle, and Los Angeles was ready to play its part. Spector's arrest was only the opening act. Released on $1 million bail, he returned to his castle, defiant and unbowed, hiring a dream team of attorneys that read like a who's who of legal heavyweights. First came Robert Shapiro, fresh off the O.J. Simpson trial, his slick confidence, a perfect match for Spector's larger-than-life persona. Then Bruce Cutler, the bulldog lawyer who defended mob boss John Gotti, joined the fray, ready to tear into the prosecution's case with feral intensity. Spector's defense wasn't just a legal strategy, it was a performance, a high-stakes gamble to rewrite the narrative of that fateful night. They painted Lana as a troubled soul, a fading star who would kiss the gun in a moment of despair. It was a story as seductive as it was sinister, designed to cast doubt and dazzle the public.
But the prosecution wasn't playing to lose. Led by Deputy District Attorney Alan Jackson, a charismatic lawyer with a knack for storytelling, the state built a case as airtight as Spector's soundproof recording studios. Jackson knew the evidence was damning. The blood spatter on Spector's jacket, the downward trajectory of the bullet through Lana's mouth, the Colt Cobra revolver registered to Spector himself. And then there was Adriano de Souza, the chauffeur whose trembling 911 call had cracked the case wide open. "I think my boss killed somebody," de Souza had said, his voice a haunting echo that would reverberate through the courtroom. Jackson planned to make de Souza the star witness, a humble everyman whose testimony could topple a titan. As the trial loomed, set for 2007, after years of legal maneuvering, the drama intensified. Spector's team leaned into his eccentricity, turning him into a caricature of himself. He appeared in court with a rotating cast of outlandish wig-stowering afros, shaggy mops, and a blonde bouffant that looked like it had been stolen from a 1970s sitcom. The wigs weren't just fashion, they were theater, a deliberate distraction from the grim reality of the charges. Tabloids ate it up, dubbing him the Mad Hatter of murder. Socialites and starlets packed the courtroom gallery, whispering behind manicured hands as Spector smirked from the defense table, his eyes glinting with a mix of arrogance and unease. It was Hollywood at its most perverse a trial that felt like a blockbuster premiere. The prosecution opened with a bang, painting a vivid picture of Spector's predatory past. Jackson called a parade of women to the stand, each with a chilling story of their own. There was Deborah Robitaille, a former assistant, who recounted how Spector had held her at gunpoint in the 1980s, his voice slurring as he demanded she stay. Dorothy Melvin, Joan Rivers' manager, testified to a night in 1993 when Spector, drunk and enraged, pressed a shotgun to her car window, screaming, "I could blow your head off." Stephanie Jennings, a photographer, described a 1,995 encounter where Spector locked her in his hotel room, waving a pistol and muttering threats. The pattern was undeniable. Spector had a history of using guns to control women, a ticking time bomb that had finally exploded with Lana. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Jackson wove these accounts into a narrative of obsession and control. He argued that Lana, vibrant and ambitious, had no reason to end her life. She'd bought new shoes that day, a symbol of her resilience. Her friends testified to her optimism, her determination to claw her way back to the spotlight. The suicide defense was a lie, Jackson thundered, a desperate attempt to smear a woman who could no longer speak for herself. The jury leaned forward, their faces a mix of fascination and horror as Jackson described the moment of murder. Spector, drunk and rejected, forcing the gun into Lana's mouth, pulling the trigger in a fit of rage. The image was visceral, a gut punch that left the room silent. Spector's defense fought back with equal ferocity. Cutler took the stand like a prizefighter, his New York accent slicing through the courtroom as he attacked de Souza's credibility. The chauffeur, Cutler claimed, was an opportunist, a man who'd misheard Spector's words in the heat of the moment. "I think I killed somebody," became, "I think somebody's been killed," a subtle twist meant to muddy the waters. The defense called forensic experts who spun elaborate theories. The blood spatter could have come from Lana's own hand, The gun's position suggested a self-inflicted wound. They even trotted out a toxicologist who speculated that Lana's antidepressants might have pushed her to suicide. It was a masterclass in deflection, each argument more audacious than the last. The trial's climax came when D'Souza took the stand. The room fell silent as the soft-spoken Brazilian recounted that night in harrowing detail. He described Spector emerging from the mansion, blood on his jacket, gun in hand, his voice trembling with panic. "I think I killed somebody," D'Souza repeated, his eyes locked on the jury. The words landed like a thunderclap, their simplicity cutting through the defense's smoke and mirrors. Jackson paced the floor, his questions sharp and deliberate, drawing out every agonizing detail: the gunshot that woke D'Souza, the eerie stillness of the mansion, the moment he realized Lana was gone. The jury was riveted, their eyes darting between D'Souza and Spector, who sat stone-faced, his wig, a bizarre crown, atop his unraveling empire. The defense tried to rattle D'Souza, but he held firm, his honesty a beacon in the storm of lies. Cutler's cross-examination was brutal, accusing D'Souza of fabricating details for fame, but the chauffeur's calm demeanor only strengthened his credibility. The jury saw a man who'd stumbled into a nightmare, not a schemer chasing headlines.
As D'Souza stepped down, the prosecution rested, confident they'd delivered a knockout blow. The courtroom hummed with anticipation, the stakes higher than ever. Would Spector's fame and fortune shield him, as they had so many times before, or would justice finally catch up to the man behind the wall of sound? The trial's resolution was a roller coaster of its own. After weeks of testimony, the jury deliberated for 15 days in eternity that left Los Angeles on edge. Spector's wigs became a running joke on late-night shows, while Lana's face graced magazine covers, her story a rallying cry for those who'd been silenced by powerful men. When the verdict came, it was a shock. A hung jury, 10-2 in favor of conviction. The courtroom erupted, gasps mingling with groans as Spector's team claimed victory and Jackson vowed to retry the case. The drama wasn't over, it was merely intermission. Hollywood held its breath, knowing the real showdown was yet to come. The Los Angeles skyline glittered under a haze of anticipation in late 2008, as the city braced for the second act of the Phil Spector murder trial. The Pyrenees Castle in Alhambra, once a fortress of secrets, was now a ghost in the public's imagination. Its gothic silhouette, synonymous with the night Lana Clarkson's life was stolen. The first trial's hung jury had left Hollywood Bazinga a tantalizing cliffhanger in a saga dripping with scandal, betrayal, and the allure of fallen stardom. Spector, the eccentric genius behind the wall of sound, had dodged justice once, his outlandish wigs and high-powered lawyers turning the courtroom into a theater of the absurd. But the prosecution wasn't done. They were sharpening their knives, ready to carve through Spector's carefully curated myth and deliver justice for Lana. The second trial, set to begin in October 2008, promised to be a spectacle unlike any other. The Los Angeles County Superior Court was a pressure cooker, packed with reporters, curious socialites, and true crime fanatics who'd camped out for seats. Spector swept in like a rock star, his wardrobe a carnival of excess, a pinstripe suit one day, a velvet coat the next, his wigs now towering monstrosities that seemed to defy gravity. The tabloids couldn't get enough, splashing headlines like "Wigged Out Killer" across newsstands. Yet beneath the theatrics, there was a palpable tension. Spector's smirk was thinner, his eyes darting nervously as the weight of the evidence loomed. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning, and the city was hooked. Deputy District Attorney Alan Jackson returned with a vengeance, his charisma dialed to 11. He'd learned from the first trial's missteps, refining his strategy to cut through Spector's smoke and mirrors. Jackson's opening statement was a masterclass in storytelling, painting Lana as a vibrant dreamer whose life was snuffed out by a man who couldn't handle rejection. Phil Spector didn't just kill Lana Clarkson, Jackson thundered, his voice echoing through the courtroom. He erased her, then tried to rewrite her story as a suicide. But the truth doesn't bend to fame or fortune. The jury, A fresh panel of Angelinos leaned forward, their faces a mix of awe and unease, as Jackson laid out the case. The blood, the gun, the chauffeur's chilling testimony. Spector's defense team, now led by Doran Weinberg after Shapiro and Cutler stepped back, countered with a slicker narrative. Weinberg, a silver-haired attorney with a reputation for turning lost causes into wins, leaned hard into the suicide theory. He painted Lana as a woman on the edge, her career in tatters, her spirit broken by Hollywood's cruel indifference. Lana Clarkson was a tragedy waiting to happen, Weinberg said, his tone smooth as silk. She picked up that gun, kissed it, and ended her pain. It was a bold move, one that sparked gasps from the gallery and fury from Lana's friends, who sat in the courtroom, their eyes blazing with defiance. Weinberg's team bolstered their case with forensic experts, who spun dizzying theories about blood spatter and gun angles, each argument a calculated jab to sow doubt. The prosecution's case was a slow burn, building to a crescendo that kept the courtroom on edge. Jackson called Adriano D'Souza back to the stand, the chauffeur's testimony as devastating as ever. D'Souza's soft voice carried a quiet power as he recounted Spector's blood-stained confession. "I think I killed somebody." The words hung in the air, heavy with finality, as Jackson paced the floor, his questions sharp and unrelenting. D'Souza described the gunshot that shattered the night, the eerie calm of the Pyrenees castle, and the moment he saw Lana's body slumped in that fake Louis XIV chair, her life drained away. The jury was spellbound, their eyes flickering between D'Souza and Spector, who sat rigid, his wig a bizarre halo atop his shrinking frame. To hammer the point home, Jackson brought back the women from Spector's past, their stories a chilling chorus of near misses. Deborah Robitaille's voice trembled as she recalled Spector's gun pressed to her temple, his drunken rage a prelude to violence. Dorothy Melvin's testimony was electric, her account of Spector's shotgun-wielding tantrum painting him as a man unhinged. A new witness, Diane Ogden, added fuel to the fire, describing a 1989 incident where Spector held her hostage in his mansion, a revolver in hand, as he slurred, "You're not leaving." The pattern was undeniable. Spector wasn't just an eccentric genius, was a predator, his charm a mask for a darkness that had finally claimed a life. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, the air thick with the thrill of revelation. The defense fought back with a parade of experts, each more audacious than the last. A forensic pathologist claimed the bullet's trajectory could support a suicide, while a blood spatter analyst argued the stains on Spector's jacket were inconclusive. Weinberg even called a psychologist who speculated about Lana's mental state, citing her antidepressants as evidence of despair. It was a high-wire act, each witness a gamble to sway the jury, but the defense's star witness was Spector himself, or rather, his absence. Weinberg opted not to put him on the stand, a risky move that left the jury craving the producer's own words. Would Spector's silence damn him, or was it a masterstroke to keep his volatility out of the spotlight? The trial's high point came during the prosecution's forensic deep dive. Jackson called Dr. Lynn Harold, a blood spatter expert whose testimony was a knockout punch. Harold meticulously explained the blood on Spector's jacket, the spray patterns inconsistent with him standing at a distance. "The shooter was close within inches," she said, her voice steady as she pointed to diagrams projected on a courtroom screen. "The bullet's downward angle," she added, "ruled out a self-inflicted wound unless Lana had contorted herself in an impossible way." The jury's eyes widened, the implications sinking in. Jackson drove the point home with a dramatic flourish, holding up the Colt Cobra revolver and mimicking Spector's alleged act. The courtroom silent, except for the gasps of onlookers. It was pure theater, and it worked. The defense scrambled to recover, but cracks were showing. Weinberg's experts were less convincing this time, their jargon-heavy testimonies paling against Harold's clarity. The jury grew restless, their attention drifting as Weinberg tried to reframe the narrative. Spector's wigs, once a quirky distraction, now seemed desperate, a clownish attempt to deflect from the mounting evidence. Outside the courtroom, Los Angeles was ablaze with debate. Talk shows dissected every twist, while ex-posts from locals speculated wildly. Spector's guilty, those wigs screamed desperation. Lana deserved better than this circus. The city was a pressure cooker, and the verdict was the valve about to blow. Closing arguments were a clash of titans. Jackson went for the jugular, his voice rising as he described Lana's final moments. She walked into that mansion full of hope, and Phil Spector took it all away. He pulled that trigger, and he's been running from the truth ever since. He pointed at Spector, who stared back, his face a mask of defiance. Weinberg countered with a softer touch, urging the jury to see Lana's death as a tragedy, not a crime. "There's no villain here," he said, "just a broken woman and a man caught in the wrong place." The jury retired to deliberate, leaving the courtroom in a fever of anticipation. Would Spector walk free again, his fame a shield against justice? Or would Lana's story finally be heard? The resolution came on the 13th of April, 2009, after 9 days of deliberation that felt like an eternity. The courtroom was packed, the air electric with tension as the foreman read the verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. A collective gasp swept the room, followed by cheers from Lana's supporters. Spector's face crumpled, his wig suddenly absurd in the face of defeat. Jackson embraced his team, their victory, a beacon, for every woman who'd faced Spector's wrath. Weinberg sat stunned, his gamble on doubt having failed. Outside, Los Angeles erupted, the news ticker on Sunset Boulevard flashing. Spector convicted. Lana's mother, Lana Clarkson, wept in the hallway, her daughter's memory vindicated at last. Spector was sentenced to 19 years to life, his empire of sound reduced to a prison cell. The Pyrenees castle stood empty, its halls silent, a relic of a night that had changed everything. Hollywood moved on, but Lana's story lingered, a reminder of the cost of unchecked power. The trial was over, but its echoes would haunt the City of Angels, a seductive, chilling tale of fame, violence, and redemption. Los Angeles, 2009, was a city that thrived on reinvention, but the shadow of Phil Spector's conviction hung heavy over its glittering facade. The Pyrenees Castle in Alhambra, once a monument to the producer's genius, stood like a cursed relic, its turrets piercing the night sky as if guarding secrets, yet untold. Spector, now a convicted murderer, was stripped of his wigs and bravado, trading his velvet coats for a prison jumpsuit at California's Corcoran State Prison. The man who'd shaped the sound of a generation was reduced to a number, his 19 years to life sentence, a grim epilogue to a life of excess. Yet, even as the gavel fell, whispers of unfinished business swirled through Hollywood's neon-lit corridors. Lana Clarkson's justice had been served, but was the story truly over? The city buzzed with a seductive unease, as if the Pyrenees castle still held answers, locked in its marble halls. Spector's conviction was a seismic event, a rare moment when Hollywood's untouchables were held accountable. The trial had been a circus, a fever dream of wigs, blood, and betrayal that captivated the world. Deputy District Attorney Alan Jackson emerged as a hero, his relentless pursuit of truth earning him a place in Los Angeles lore. Lana's mother, Lana Clarkson, became a quiet symbol of resilience, her tear-streaked face at the verdict, a testament to a mother's love. But the public's appetite for drama was insatiable, and Spector's downfall only fueled their hunger for more. Tabloids churned out headlines. Spector's secrets. What else did he hide? Ex-posts from locals lit up with theories. That mansion's gotta have more bodies. Lana wasn't the first. Bet there's more to dig up. The city was a tinderbox, and the spark of curiosity was about to ignite. Behind bars, Spector was no longer the larger-than-life figure who'd once held court with the Beatles. At 69, his health was failing diabetes, hypertension, and a voice weakened by years of excess. Yet his defiance burned bright. He filed appeals, claiming judicial misconduct and juror bias, his legal team spinning tales of a railroaded genius. His new attorney, Dennis Riordan, argued that the prosecution's parade of past victims, Deborah Robitaille, Dorothy Melvin, Diane Ogden, had prejudiced the jury, painting Spector as a monster before evidence was even presented. The appeals kept the case alive, each filing a fresh twist in a saga that refused to die. Los Angeles watched, riveted, as Spector's name resurfaced in courtrooms and newsrooms, a ghost who wouldn't stay buried. Meanwhile, the Pyrenees castle became a magnet for the curious and the macabre. Urban explorers and true crime buffs sneaked past its rusted gates, whispering of cold spots and strange noises in the foyer where Lana died. A local paranormal group, the The Alhambra ghost hunters claimed to have recorded EVP electronic voice phenomena muttering Lana's name in the dead of night. The mansion's new owner, a reclusive investor, put it up for sale, but buyers shied away, spooked by its history. Real estate agents reported lights flickering during showings, doors slamming shut on their own. Was it grief, guilt, or something darker haunting those walls? The rumors grew, each one more tantalizing than the last, drawing podcasters and influencers to Alhambra in search of the next big scoop. The drama escalated when a former Spector associate, Vincent Tenazzo, a retired NYPD officer who'd worked security for the producer, came forward with a bombshell. In a 2010 interview with a true crime magazine, Tenazzo claimed Spector had confessed to him years before Lana's death, boasting about taking care of women who crossed him. Phil said he'd make people disappear if they messed with him, Tenazzo alleged, his gravelly voice dripping with menace. He wasn't joking. The revelation sent shockwaves through Los Angeles, reigniting speculation about Spector's past. Had other women vanished from his orbit? Were their files buried in LAPD archives? Cases dismissed because of Spector's fame? The public was hooked, their imaginations running wild with visions of hidden graves and silenced witnesses. The tension peaked when a mysterious package arrived at the Los Angeles Times in 2011, postmarked from an untraceable address in Alhambra. Inside was a grainy Polaroid of the Pyrenees Castle's foyer, taken years before Lana's death. A woman, her face blurred but her blonde hair unmistakable, sat in the same Louis XIV chair where Lana would later die, a shadowy figure looming behind her, scrawled on the back in red ink. He did it before. The photo was dismissed as a hoax by police, but it set off a frenzy. Amateur sleuths on X dissected every pixel, linking the image to unsolved missing persons cases from the 1980s. A name surfaced: Anita Swanson, a backup singer who'd worked with Spector in 1987 and vanished without a trace. Her family, long ignored, demanded answers, their pleas a haunting echo of Lana's story. The prosecution, though officially done with Spector, couldn't ignore the growing clamor. Jackson, now a private attorney but still a legend, was approached by Anita's sister, who begged him to look into the case. Lana's justice opened the door, she said, her voice trembling. What if there's more? Jackson hesitated. His victory over Spector had been hard-won, and reopening old wounds risked his legacy. But the Polaroid gnawed at him, its cryptic message a siren call. He began digging, quietly reaching out to retired detectives and combing through Spector's tangled history. What he found was a maze of half-truths. Women who'd fled Spector's mansion in Terror, North Dakota, as signed under duress, and a string of accidents that never made headlines. The deeper he went, the darker it got, each clue a thread in a tapestry of horror. The high point came when Jackson uncovered a retired LAPD officer, Frank Delgado, who'd responded to a disturbance call at the Pyrenees Castle in 1989. Delgado recalled a young woman, possibly Anita, sobbing in the driveway, claiming Spector had threatened her with a gun. The case was dropped after Spector's lawyers intervened, the woman vanishing soon after. Delgado's logbook, miraculously preserved, noted a detail that chilled Jackson to the bone. A Colt Cobra revolver, identical to the one that killed Lana, was logged as evidence but never tested. Was it the same gun? Had Spector's empire of influence buried a murder decades before? The questions piled up, each one a pulse of adrenaline for a city addicted to the drama. The resolution was no resolution at all, just a tantalizing pause. Jackson's investigation hit a wall when key records from the 1980s were found missing from LAPD archives, a coincidence that reeked of sabotage. Spector, from his prison cell, denied everything, his appeals dragging on with no end in sight. The Polaroid remained an enigma, its origins untraceable, its truth locked in the shadows. Anita Swanson's case was reopened, but leads were scarce, her fate a question mark that haunted Los Angeles. The Pyrenees Castle went up for auction, its price slashed, yet still no one dared claim it. The city held its breath, caught between closure and chaos, as whispers of a Spector curse took root. And then, a final twist, a cryptic X post from an anonymous account claiming to be a former Spector employee surfaced in 2012. "The castle holds more than you know," it read. "Check the basement. Lana wasn't the last." The post vanished hours later, but not before screenshots spread like wildfire. True crime forums exploded, with users planning late-night treks to Alhambra, their curiosity outweighing their fear. What was in the basement? Another victim? A confession carved in the walls? Or was it all a cruel hoax? A final act of manipulation from a man who'd always played the puppet master? The story of Phil Spector and Lana Clarkson didn't end with a verdict. It fractured into 1,000 unanswered questions, each one more seductive than the last. Los Angeles, ever the city of dreams and nightmares, couldn't look away. The Pyrenees Castle stood silent, its secrets buried deep, waiting for someone bold enough to unearth them. Want to know what happens next? Dive into the darkness with us. Follow our channel for the next chapter of this chilling Hollywood mystery, where the truth is always one twist away.